Storytime with Grena. Hello and welcome everybody to Storytime with Grena. I'm Grena Lawson and I'm here to tell you a story. In the next 7 minutes, I will tell you something crazy that may or may not have happened to me, and it is up to you to decide if that story is real or if I'm making everything up. But before we dive into today's story, let's talk about last week's. If you remember, I told you about my very first time as a teacher, or rather how I made a fool of myself in front of a bunch of 14-year-olds by being way too serious and a little bit overprotective. Are you ready? Well, that story is fake. That never happened to me. It is actually a combination of some stories I've heard from my teacher friends. And now, let's start with a new story. Today's story is about how I met my cat. I don't know what I was thinking. I wouldn't call myself much of an animal person because I didn't get much experience with pets while I was growing up. My parents moved around a lot, and apart from that, we tended to live in small apartments, so not the best place for a dog or a cat. So that means I only got my first real pet as an adult. I had just finished college, and finally, I was living on my own, in an apartment with no roommates, which is very nice because my experiences with roommates would give me material for a few episodes of this podcast. It wasn't a very big apartment, but just for myself, it was more than enough. Besides, it was located in a pretty nice area, like close enough to the city center to be in walking distance from any possible job, but still far away enough for me to get some peace. Around the corner from that apartment, there was a pet shop, which meant that whenever I walked into town to meet my friends or whenever I went on my job search or anything like that, I would walk past that pet shop. Like I said, I've never been much of a pet person, but sometimes, especially if I wasn't in a hurry, I would stop by and have a look at the puppies and the kittens and the other animals that were on display. And I remember there was this cat in particular that really stuck with me. It was one of those super fluffy Persian cats. He was completely white. And peculiar thing about this cat is that it had mismatched eyes. It had heterochromia, I think it's called. So yeah, it was the kind of cat you would remember, you know. And apart from that, the thing is, other animals would eventually disappear. Like, you would see the puppies change every few weeks, the fish in the aquarium being replaced by other fish. But that cat was always there. I'm talking day after day for months. So I started feeling sorry for the poor creature. It must be super hard to see all of your animal friends finding a family or dying even, and you stay there behind the glass. Like, I don't even know if pets in a pet shop always live there or stay there after the shop closes or if they are taken anywhere. But the thing is that I started feeling very sorry for the poor cat. And apart from that, I started getting paranoid because I started thinking, what if no one wants to adopt him because of the mismatched eyes? And what will happen to the poor cat if no one buys him? And that's when I made the mistake of Googling it. As you can imagine, what I found out wasn't exactly hopeful or nice. So after thinking about it for ages, I finally decided to enter the pet shop. I remember standing there by the cages super awkwardly while the guy tended to other customers, because I was still kind of undecided. I wasn't sure I was ready for a pet, but I didn't want anything bad to happen to the poor cat. Just to imagine him in the dog pound, or even worse, getting sacrificed, it was like, nope, 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 nope. So after like 10 minutes, the guy in the shop finally approached me. So I could finally ask him the million questions I had. Of course, after what I had read on Google, I wanted to make sure all of that was true and not just an urban myth. And then when I brought up the cat in particular, the guy was like, oh yeah, we've had him for quite a while. Yeah, I guess people don't want to buy him because they think he's ugly. And that broke my heart a little bit. So that's when I finally made the decision. Of course, since I had never had a cat before and knew nothing about taking care of one, I grilled the guy with another million questions. He must have thought I was the most annoying customer ever. And finally, I bought the poor boy and took him home. I felt that there was something kind of regal about that cat. And back then, it was, I think, 2012. So the Game of Thrones fandom was pretty big. And I decided to name him Stannis after Stannis Baratheon. I thought it was a cute name, and besides, Stannis Baratheon was kind of like the least favorite child in his family, so I felt it was appropriate. And this is the story of how I got my first cat. I know buying a pet is kind of frowned upon nowadays, even illegal in some places, I believe. And I agree that adopting is a lot better, but I seriously couldn't resist the charms of poor baby Stannis. Now, it is your choice. Is the story of Stannis the cat real or fake? Does Stannis the cat exist at all? Whatever the truth is, you will find out in the next episode of Storytime with Grena. Thank you for listening, and see you next week!